All right, hi everybody, John Meadows here, back with another sit-down video. We've been doing training videos now for what seems like months. So we're getting back into a couple more sit-down videos. And for today, I wanted to talk about post-contest dieting. And this doesn't even need to be if you've competed. It could be you just dieted, maybe it's really hot where you're at. Like here, it's 91 degrees. And luckily I didn't have football practice today out in that sun. But maybe you just underwent a hardcore diet to lose body fat. So this post contest diet or post diet rebound, reverse dieting, whatever name you want to call it, how do you kind of come out of that? And I think there are people that are like really set in their ways. Like, here's how you do it for everybody. And I never really understood that, because to me, there are different kinds of people mentally that diet. So, you have kind of mentally, you got to, so first of all, let's back up a second. First of all, you got to think about what kind of mental state somebody's in when they're dieting, particularly when it's extreme. You are so obsessed with food. Like, to me, when I was dieting really hard, the worst thing I could do is go to the grocery store, because you walk through every aisle after aisle after aisle, and maybe 90% of the food you wouldn't even think about all of a sudden looks amazing. Like, wow, that looks amazing. Things that you never would even consider eating all of a sudden look incredible. You'll be driving down the road. Isn't it amazing how your senses are heightened, your sense of smell? You'll be driving down the road. I've told this story many times. When I was younger, I would literally smell French fries and then drive down the road a little farther and there'd be a McDonald's. Like, your sense of smell even. So, people, when they've dieted really hard, they're like food obsessed. All right. So you've done that week after week, month after month. And then your event's over, whether it's a contest or, whatever it was you were trying to get in shape for, then boom, the floodgates are open. Right. So what do? So a lot of people have this philosophy on, well, you need to increase your calories, 200 calories, reevaluate, stick to the same foods. And I'm going to cover that because that is appropriate for some people. But I don't know that it's realistic for most people. I don't think that someone who's underwent that kind of stress can continue to eat that way. One of the problems is they'll add in a little bit extra food, like their half a cup of oatmeal, maybe gets to 3/4 of a cup of oatmeal. Their 4 ounces of fish goes to 5 ounces of fish. Half the time they're still in a deficit. Like, they're not even out of their deficit yet. So my approach was a little different. Like, I had a group of people that I called the mentally stable people. And then I had the group of people called the mentally unstable people. And I was generally a mentally unstable person when I dieted, because I dieted so hard for most of my career. And whether you're in one of those groups, one or the other, really not a big deal. You just are or you aren't. You're in one or the other. But how you what your process is afterwards is kind of a big deal. So if you're one of these mentally unstable people like I was early in my career, where I just wanted to eat everything. I remember there was a road where I lived where all the fast food restaurants were lined up. And after a contest, I remember going from fast food place to fast food place right down the row. Until, 3 or 4 days later, I had gained 30 pounds. I had crazy nosebleeds. I felt terrible. I looked terrible. And I venture to say most of the competitors have had some sort of version of this happen. But, that was a case where I dieted super, super, super hard. No cheat meals, tuna and lettuce, occasional potatoes here and there. But I won the shows I was in. But then when the shows were over, it was open the floodgates. I'm going to eat everything. That's a good way to make yourself really sick too, by the way. Give yourself digestive issues. I gave myself gallbladder polyps one time doing that. But so you have these people that you can tell them to stay strict all you want. It's not going to happen. So what do you do in that case? What did I do in that case? So I learned from my mistakes, and the strategy I had is what I'm going to share with you now. So I went from 6 meals down to 3. So if you were eating, I'm just going to make numbers up. Let's say you're eating 400 calories per meal. Let's say six meals times 400 calories, 2,400 calories. Now you go to 3 meals, and now just to stay where you were, it's 800 calories. But realistically, now you want to be in a surplus to start gaining weight back, getting healthy body fat back. So now you're maybe looking at 1,000 calories, 1,100, 1,200 a meal. So the meals can get a little bigger. So you can get a little more satiated. It gives you a little bit more room for some extra food. I mean, a 1,200 calorie meal or a 1,000 calorie meal is a lot bigger than a 400 calorie meal. A lot bigger. So you can actually feel more full eating that way too. So you'll be able to eat more, and the meals will carry you longer. That was the approach that I used, and it would allow me to eat a bigger breakfast because I wanted some French toast, I wanted maybe some pancakes, and then I wanted some other foods for lunch and for dinner. And you know what? It worked really, really well. It worked excellent. Just by limiting the number of meals, it really helped me. And an interesting thing too is when I'm traveling the most, when I'm very busy, whether it's doing seminars or going to contests. I was in Atlanta this weekend for the Chicago Pro. I go to that 3-meal approach for the most part. I'll get up and I'll eat breakfast, and then I'm really, really busy. And maybe I'll, get a bite to eat at some point in the middle of the day, depending on activities. And then I'll be very busy until the end of the evening, and then I'll have a dinner. And you know what? When I come back home from traveling, I'm always in a little better shape when I go to that 3-meal plan. So in that case, I'm probably in a deficit. But my point is that sometimes that 3 meals, it's just good. It's just good to back off from all those mega meals constantly all the time. So anyways, just in general for strategy, less meals, going from 6 meals down to 3, I think is a very, very valid approach. Now, the second part of that, so what kind of foods do you eat? I just said I wouldn't continue to eat everything 100% clean. Well, I'm going to give myself some treats. I'm just going to. And now you go more on a kind of a macro-based type of approach. So now, maybe I'm going to eat some more waffles for breakfast, but I'm going to look at the oatmeal I was eating. I'm going to replace it with waffles for carbs. And I'm probably going to have some more carbs, but I'm still going to try to stay in a decent calorie range. So that 400 then goes, like I said, 800 would still keep you at the same calories. So let's just say you go to 1,000 calories. Well, if you had 100 grams of carbs, that's 400 calories. So you see how much food you could actually eat doing this. You see why you'd be that much fuller. So it'll be much easier to maintain that. So now you get a little fun food. You're fuller, your calories aren't completely out of the, off the chart. So I think it's a reasonable approach for someone to now allow them to have some fun food, to keep some structure so they don't go absolutely crazy. And this is very simple. Reduce meals, go to more macro-based type dieting. So that would be the second part to it. Now, the last part to this, because I think this is pretty simple, it's look in the mirror. Monitor yourself in the mirror. Now, a lot of people are dead set on, I want to gain back my fat slowly. I'm not necessarily in that camp, and here's why. When you are in extreme condition, you're not in a healthy condition, and you're not in a prime condition to train. Being at 4 or 5% body fat is extreme. That's extreme. And you're not in like the greatest condition, your joints, your connective tissue. Like there are a lot of things that aren't primed for you to have your best workouts. So I don't care if someone gets back to their normal, healthy level body fat quicker, because the way I look at it, you just got back to where you can train better, quicker. You didn't drag it out. You didn't take 2 months to gain, whatever it is, 15 pounds. And maybe you did it in 4 weeks or 3 weeks instead of 8 weeks. I'm totally cool with that. So I know a lot of people are like, I don't want to gain all the fat back real quick. But gaining enough fat back to just get you to a healthy, optimal state of training, I don't have a problem with that. Get there as fast as you want. So that's the third thing that I think about a lot is, my calories might have sounded aggressive in my earlier example when I said go 400 to 1,000, because now you've went from 2,400 or even 1,200 a meal. That would have been 3,600 calories from 2,400. That would have been a 1,200 calorie increase. You probably were thinking, man, I'm going to gain back my fat real quick. Well, when you get back to that level of the optimal body fat, which for me, you can kind of see the outline of your abs. You still want to see your abs. You don't want a giant belly hanging out. You want your abs to look good. To me, if you get back to that faster and you don't drag it out, I'm totally okay with that. So those are some things to think about. Then, there is another group of people that they definitely need more structure. They can't, they're at risk for binging. Maybe they've had some issues with food disorders before. So you do have to be careful. You got to be careful about turning people loose real quickly in that situation. There are some people that I do use that. Okay, we're going to go up 200 calories this week. We're going to reevaluate, see how you're doing. The next week, okay, maybe we're going to go up another 150 calories, maybe 200, and reevaluate and see where you're at. And that's kind of what a lot of the coaches in our industry teach, is this real methodical, slowly bring your calories back. And I'm okay with that for some people. I just think the majority of the people, it's just not realistic. But there are some people that they need that. They need to, because if you give them a little bit extra, they'll eat maybe that little French toast or waffles I said you're going to eat in the morning, it turns into an all-out binge. So that group of people has to handle this a little bit differently. They do have to be a little more regimented, for sure. And there are other mistakes I see too. I see people that have this approach where they save their calories through the day, so they don't eat all the way until dinner. Then they absolutely pig out, figuring there's absolutely no way they can exceed their calories too much, but they do. They're eating, 2 large pizzas or a large pizza, and they're drinking a 2-liter not Diet Coke, a regular Coke, what have you. That's a great way to get some digestive issues. It's a great way to feel terrible, to be bloated and just feel awful. I wouldn't recommend eating like that under any circumstance. So, there are some pretty common mistakes too that people make when they come back. But anyway, so really what I wanted to do was I wanted to talk about, this approach where you cut your meals down and you go to more of a macro-based type of thought process, and you're not so worried about getting back to a healthy level body fat. That's one approach. The other approach is, okay, you're a little more methodical. Maybe you don't go crazy on macros. Maybe you still stick to the same foods, and maybe add in a little fun food here and there. I believe in a 90-10 philosophy, by the way. 90% of the food should be, what we call clean, for lack of a better terms. I know some of you you'll go crazy when you hear that word. 10% fun food. So if you have 10 meals, 10 meals, 9 of them are clean, 1 of them's a fun meal. I do believe in that. The other thing I want to mention one more thing. So if you have been fortunate enough to incorporate some cheat meals, you will be able to better handle yourself after the diet's over. I've been in several shows where people are backstage, man, I can't wait to have a hamburger. I can't wait to have some pizza. And I was probably the leanest person in the show. And I said, yeah, I just had a hamburger last weekend. They're like, huh? Or yeah, I just had 3 slices of pizza last weekend. But I dieted so hard, I gave myself a cheat meal like on a Friday. And then when the show's over, every week you've already had a hamburger or pizza or whatever it is that you want to have. So you don't feel as deprived. So, me personally, later in my career, when my contest was over, I didn't really have any cravings. I honestly always like to have just a fruit smoothie, and I was cool. Like, that's all I need. That's good. Now, I've been on the other side of that too, like I mentioned, where I just ate tuna and lettuce and maybe a potato here and there, really brutal, hardcore dieting. And that's when I went off the deep end. So you got to remember that too when you're dieting, is the harder you diet, the more restricted you are, the more likely you are to be one of these people that goes nuts when the show's over. So if you can intelligently design your program so that you can get some scheduled cheat meals in there and still hit your body fat loss targets, I think you're going to be better in the long run. So those are just some thoughts. There's many different ways to skin the cat. I just wanted to share with you some of the thoughts off the top of my head on reverse dieting, post-contest dieting, whatever you want to call it. But I think you get the idea. So I hope this is helpful. Hope it's beneficial. If you've got some tricks that you've learned, certainly comment below and share it with the group so they can see as well. And we'll see you next time.